Welcome into Locked On Eagles Squad podcast. That's Harry Mays, and that right there is Louie DiBiase. I'm Mark Farzetta. Jason Martinez has the day off. We got a lot to get into when it comes to your Philadelphia Eagles. We'll continue to go through what Vic Fangio had to say. Well, let's talk about Jordan Davis staying in shape, hopefully for an entire season. And Saquon Barkley talks about how he would plan to retire. Nope, don't like that. This is Eagles Squad podcast.
Fly, Eagles, fly. It's the Eagles Squad, sponsored by Game Time. Everything Philadelphia Eagles every week, covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the city of brotherly love. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Eagles Squad show starting now.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Eagles Squad podcast here. This particular episode is brought to you by the wonderful people at FanDuel. That's right. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins with FanDuel. Couldn't think of a better way to get started on that, gentlemen, than the NBA Finals getting underway tonight. But Let's start off with Saquon. Yeah, let's start off with Saquon Barkley, Harry and Louie, because I don't want to hear anything about retiring. I don't want to hear it. And when he was on Greenlight Podcast recently with Chris Long, while they had Geno's Steaks in South Philadelphia draped in Madden 26 garb, and Saquon Barkley's no-look leap, reverse huddle, whatever, or hurdle, excuse me, they talked about possibly retiring. And basically what Saquon Barkley said was not that he's going to do it right now, but when he does think about doing it, he thinks about pulling a full Barry Sanders, and just all of a sudden you're in the midst of a phenomenal run in your career, and you're just like, yeah, that's it. See you later. I'm not going to be at training camp. That's about it. The only other person you could really compare it to is James Brown, who wanted to be in movies and told the Browns he wouldn't be ready because he was filming 12 Angry Men. Or not 12 Angry Men. What was the just a Dirty Dozen?
12 Men Out, Dirty Dozen. What do we got?
I had the wrong dozen. But it was an abrupt retirement. Harry, I don't want to hear. I know I'm the guy banging the drum saying 482 touches in a season and postseason combined, but I in no way, shape, or form want Saquon Barkley to retire anytime soon. How near do you think this is?
Well, I don't know, but I always seem to say that people that like to work forever don't play golf. And Saquon Barkley has figured out the love of the game of golf over the past year or two.
True.
I don't know, maybe it even started earlier than that, but he's really accelerated his fervor for the game of golf. And I blame this. I blame the game that I love so much. Is he's starting to see the other side now, and he's like, man, I've already won my Super Bowl, okay? I'm on the cover of Madden. Okay, I'm probably never going to win the MVP because if I would have won it, it would have been last season. So I don't know that I'm ever going to get that because it's turned into a quarterback award. So what else is there to really play for? And he likes his two legs. They're both in great shape right now, and he wants to keep it that way. So, I can't sit here and blame him. It's not happening this year. He's gonna obviously play this year. I would anticipate if they win another Super Bowl, however, perhaps that's it.
Okay. Hall of Fame would still be left on the table, Louie.
Yeah.
You're talking about getting Saquon Barkley in there. What do you make of his comments to Chris Long that if he retires, it would be abrupt?
Well, first off, I'd just like to say, if their golf course is now getting destroyed in Philadelphia and New Jersey, I blame Harry Mays, because Eagles fans now are going to want to make sure Saquon can't get on the course, at least not in the 215. But for me, unless Saquon was talking about maybe retiring at the end of this year, then nothing he said is really surprising to me, because I don't know if it would be like a Barry Sanders abrupt retirement, because if he retires in 2 to 3 years, like that's how long I'm expecting him to still be a core elite piece of this offense. I don't think he's going to be with the Eagles for 5+ more seasons. So if he retires in 2 to 3 years when he's 30+ years old, I mean, he's already heading into his 8th season. That wouldn't really shock me much anyway. So if he plays through this new extension and then he hangs it up, I don't know, like that's the shelf life of an NFL running back anyway. And by that point, even if he doesn't retire, the Eagles might be looking to move on. So I think this is a 2 to 3 year marriage. Get as much out of him as you can. You already got a championship, maybe another one. But that, I don't know, what he said really isn't too shocking to me. If he was like in year 5 and he was talking about that, it would be more noteworthy. But Saquon's been in the league longer than I think we've kind of felt, right? And he has had a lot of injuries. So, yeah, it's not too shocking to me.
If anything that we have to – okay, now, look, we can thank the New York Giants for being dumb and letting Saquon go and being really dumb and deciding to pay old Danny dimes, who got a lot of dimes from the Giants. But we can thank them also for Saquon wanting to stick around a little bit more because, if anything, you mentioned it, Harry, he wants to go out on his own terms. You mentioned that he wants to go and play the game of golf. You mentioned that he's the type of guy that has already won a Super Bowl. He's already got accolades, 2,000-yard season. The motivation that would be left would be to run it back and be a back-to-back Super Bowl champion, sort of like Terrell Davis, by the way, and be able to add to his Hall of Fame case. You're talking about a guy right now in Saquon Barkley. I say only, but only has 7,200 yards in his career right now. He's going to have to get to the double digits. He's going to have to get to around 13,000, 14,000 to just absolutely solidify that. That would take at least another couple of years for him to do that, even with another 2,000-yard season, let's say, in the upcoming year. But another Super Bowl victory would help shorten or really close that gap for a Hall of Fame case for Saquon Barkley, Harry.
Yeah, I mean, if he backed up, let's say he backed up a 2,000-yard season again, and the Eagles went on to win back-to-back Super Bowls. I mean, that's a really good case, because sticking around for 14,000 yards. I mean, that. I don't see that happening, especially now that we hear these comments. Hey, I don't think he's thinking, that he's one of these guys that's going to hang around to his mid-30s. Taking a pounding just to try to get to a surefire Hall of Fame number. But if he backed up 2,000 yards 2 years in a row and 2 Super Bowls, I think he's going to be wearing a mustard coat someday.
Yeah, and it is quite the resume, right? I mean, he had, I think, the greatest individual season a running back's ever had, the most yards ever when you combine the regular season and the playoffs. Like you guys said, I mean, he got the ring, was the main reason you won a championship in 2024 for a running back. That's amazing. He kind of revived the position financially in a way as well. But remember, though, although it's like more accomplishments than a single player has had in 1 year ever, removing the quarterback position, at the same time, it was only 1 year. Like, this guy suffered for a long time in New York. So I think he wants to enjoy this a little bit longer. I don't think after 1 year he's saying, okay, my cup's full, I'm going to hang it up. I do think he wants to build, as Mark was saying, that legacy, that Hall of Fame legacy. And I think even though last year was so historic, I do think he has to have a couple more elite seasons to be a Canton Hall of Fame option. So I do think he's going to play at least 2 to 3 more years. Like, he's going to play through this deal at least in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The other thing is it wouldn't bother me. This would just be a thought. It would just be a passing thought from him if it wasn't along the lines of a plan. Like saying, this is going to happen. When it's done, it's done. It's going to be over. It's going to be quick. And then literally this happens on the heels of Ragnow retiring with the Lions, and obviously not a running back, not Saquon Barkley. But this has happened in the NFL time and time again now, where guys realize the true danger of the sport. These guys have certainly with CTE have a concern that is on their minds. We all grew up watching the guys that we really admire now limp to the microphone to give public addresses or whatever when they talk to the fan bases. That it's not just that anymore. It's actually dealing with your brain. And you're seeing guys say, I can't convince myself that I'm 100% healthy anymore, or that I could go 5 more years, let alone 1 more year. So guys make their money at the NFL level, then they go and do something else nowadays. Saquon, I still think, has a lot of greatness left in him. I would be shocked if even after another great year this year, he would call it quits after that. But the fact that it wasn't just a passing thought, it wasn't, when I look back on my career, when it's all said and done, I'll be impressed with this, or remember the parade, or it was, when I'm done, I'm going to be done real quick. That's the only thing that made me go, damn, son, come on.
Yeah.
You still got plenty of time left behind this offensive line. You can run behind this offensive line until you're 35. No problem. You won't even have a Derrick Henry run where you're getting hit 20 times behind the line of scrimmage. It should be easy behind a Jeff Stoutland offensive line.
Terrell Davis has only 7,607 career yards, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Okay.
So
is Saquon a Hall of Famer right now? Like, if his career, if he retired right now, is Saquon a Hall of Fame? I mean, he did again have the greatest season potentially of all time for a running back. Like, is that 1 year enough? I think he already has a good case.
Yeah, I thought Davis had more than that, but the back-to-back Super Bowls, the missing link to the John Elway Super Bowl-less career until TD showed up there. Look, for me, I've always appreciated Saquon Barkley as a top 3 running back in the NFL since he broke into the NFL. I just talent-wise, he didn't have the stats. Just on a bad team, like the Archie Manning syndrome. You're a good quarterback on a terrible team. But I looked at Saquon Barkley as one of the most talented running backs in the NFL for his entire career. Matter of staying healthy, matter of being surrounded with some talent. And I've made the argument many times to invoke Barry Sanders' name again. I mean, we all are very much aware of the era where it was, man, if Barry had Emmett's offensive line, what could he have done? This is that. This is all of a sudden Barry Sanders isn't with the Lions anymore. Barry Sanders is with the Dallas Cowboys, and now he's running for 2,500 yards in a 16-game schedule. You know, it's that kind of craziness that would have happened back then, but it's happening now, and also one more game to play in the schedule. The other thing is, let's say you start forget about just adding, and playing in playoff games, not getting the first round bye, whatever. You're talking about the potential with Roger Goodell adding another regular season game. That would be another opportunity for him to add to his titles. That's I have no doubt in my mind. I was convinced 17 games was coming. I am absolutely convinced 18 games is coming. That's Roger Goodell. That's a story for another day. But I see him continuing to play. If you're asking Louie, because I don't want to dodge your question, it's a great question. Is he a Hall of Famer right now? Yeah, for me, he's got. If I had a vote, he'd have my vote. Agreed. The season he just had, Super Bowl championship, immediately gets with an organization that knows exactly what they're doing, not the Giants, and he puts forth that kind of career or that kind of season. Yeah, I put him in the Hall of Fame.
Well, and my criteria for the Hall of Fame is kind of different than everybody else. Like, I always ask one question if I'm on the committee. Like, can the story of the NFL be told without this player? Yeah. Can the story of the NFL be told without Saquon Barkley's 2024 season? Probably not. Like, that's why I would put in more players than Ken normally does. So I think he has a good case. I think a lot of this, too, has to do with, like, if he's going to hang it up or not. It's about injuries. If he stays healthy, like if he starts getting banged up again like he did with the Giants, he'll probably call it in a couple of years. So that's why I think it's key this year to, as much as he's still going to be the focal point of the offense, to not give him a historic usage rate again in the regular season. I think the passing game needs to take on more of the load. I think maybe if you want to keep him involved but not run him as much, like throw him the football more. I do think they have to, like if they want to make sure he doesn't retire early, they got to keep him upright.
Maybe it's just because I'm so old and I've watched so much football since I was 6 years old back in 1971 that I just have look at football players in 1 year windows. I really harness my emotion back from trying to think of this guy and project him 3, 4, 5 years down the line, especially a veteran player. So maybe it's just me, but I'm just sort of looking at 1 year windows with a running back, especially with the wear and tear that he put on himself last year. And now with these comments, I'm going 1 year windows.
Okay.
It's a fair way to look at it, though, for the NFL, how fast things change, especially at running back. So I don't hate that perspective at all.
Yeah, I actually, as someone who wants to champion the cause for him playing like 5 more years, I'm going to go ahead and say, no, not even close to the Hall of Fame. He sucks. Oh, my God. What a fluke of a season for Saquon Barkley. This guy, Stoutland carried his ass.
You haven't proven anything to me.
System running back.
System running.
Right, there you go.
Did nothing that Josh Adams couldn't do. Wendell Smallwood,
Plug and play.
Tomato.
This season it was all Jalen. It was all Jalen. And you know who really comes? Johnny Wilson. Johnny Wilson carried this offense.
If you give Gainwell the same amount of carries, he'd have had the same season.
That's right.
Exactly.
Right.
Good. Well, we got that out of the way. That's an interesting way to look at story of the NFL without this guy. And if you think about it in that perspective, because I'll tell you how I think of it, but if you think about it in that perspective, there's no way you're telling the story of the NFL, and especially the 2024, 2025 season. You're not telling the story of blowout in the NFC Championship. You're not talking about a 10-game winning streak. Yeah. Blowout in the NFC Championship game. Blowout in the Super Bowl. You're not telling that story without Saquon Barkley. So by that, I agree. My measure is best of the generation. Was he really one of the best of his generation? Could you talk about, football in the football in the 70s without, Terry Bradshaw. Could you really talk about that? No, you couldn't.
Right.
90s and 2000s without Tom Brady. Forget about it. Not happening. That's the obvious one. But I don't think you can talk about it in 2015, 2025 in this era of Saquon Barkley and say Saquon Barkley is not one of the best running backs that we have seen when it comes to the regular season numbers, comes to the championship. It is, and literally, again, the second you put him on a good team, he was historic, literally the best ever. It's absolutely incredible. And what he meant. You're talking about a team that 2 years earlier lost the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. He comes in 2 years later, you win the Super Bowl in blowout fashion against the Chiefs. So I think, you could certainly say that he is the Hall of Famer and a Hall of Famer. But hopefully he never watches or hears this and keeps thinking he has a lot to prove.
Yeah, think about last year. I know Louie, loves to talk about his historic numbers, and he's absolutely right. Think about, we're going through it game by game. It took until the game that we're starting really this week with the Giants to where it really kind of went up.
That's a great point.
His usage rate really wasn't that significant in those first 5 games. They didn't turn into the Saquon Barkley run-first kind of football team until after the bye week. So he had a whole month. Think about what the numbers he could have put up if they would have started with this mentality right out of the gate in week 1.
That's the thing. It's also the way he was putting up the numbers. I mean, it was a weekly occurrence that this guy was ripping off at least a 40-plus yard play. And a lot of the times it was 60 to 70-plus. I mean,
Home
he
runs.
did last year pretty much what you expected from Deshaun Jackson back in the day at receiver. Saquon was doing that at running back. And again, in 2024, like that, I just think is so historic. And yeah, but Mark's right. System running back. Let's make sure he doesn't get all this hype because he needs to play at least 2 to 3 more years here.
So overrated, that guy. Who does he think he is? Derrick Henry? Come on, that dude.
This isn't a running league.
Stick with the trends, babe.
Right.
Fascinating. Now, while we're on this subject of Saquon Barkley, let's just get into this right now, Harry, because it is fascinating, and I know you wanted to talk about this. How there are not more accolades for offensive linemen in the NFL is just awful. Like every team that really knows how to win, they build in the trenches. They build with the offensive line. It's something that Andy Reid drilled into this organization for the time that he was here, and they've done it since. So when I look at it, this what is it? Protector of the Year award is there's a lot more of these that need to come, and I don't just need pancake stats. I need more awards like this.
Right, I totally agree with you. This is a long time overdue, and it just popped into my mind because I got an email a couple of days ago from our buddy Jimmy Shapiro with some odds via betonline.ag, and I'm like, that's right. They talked about this, but they're actually doing it. And the first Eagle is Lane Johnson, who sits as the 4th favorite right now, according to betonline.ag. He's a 9-1 player to win the award behind Penei Sewell, who's the favorite, of course, from Detroit at 3-1. They got a pretty darn good offensive line, too. Trent Williams, who's still kicking it at 7-1. Is he still with San Francisco? Last I looked, he was still with the Niners, I believe, right?
I believe he is, yes.
And then Tristan Wirfs, who I believe is still with the Buccaneers, at 8-1. Then comes Lane Johnson, and you got Jordan Mailata down a couple spots after that at 14-1. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Landon Dickerson is the next Eagle, and he's 25-1. So he's got juicy numbers, juicy odds that Lane Dickerson Dickerson, if
Lane
you want to put a little, or no, Landon Dickerson at 25-1 would win you a lot.
Okay.
I can't wait for this award to completely outrage me when Lane Johnson doesn't win it. And it's just somebody that everybody's heard of, like a Penei Sewell, and he's young and in his prime. Like Pro Football Focus, even the other day, ranking Lane number 5 of all tackles. Like there's no better tackle in football, in my opinion. And they put Mailata number 1. But the guy went 4 to 5 years without giving up a single sack. And I know he's not going to win this award next year, and it's going to just outrage everybody. Right. So it's cool that the offensive line's getting some individual recognition. I just know specifically this year, this award's going to probably piss us off.
All right,
and then what's the record? What's the record for the Eagles? I don't know if it off the top of my head, but when Lane doesn't play,
they're 11-22 or 11-23, I believe. When Lane's not, they have like a 33% win percentage when he's not playing.
That's amazing, right there. Yeah.
Well, this is reminded. You mentioned Penei Sewell. remember last year, Lane Johnson didn't make the All-Pro team,
Right.
but Penei Sewell did.
Yeah.
And Lane Johnson, who is great with speaking to the media, he'll answer the question. Great, did not stand in his locker. Instead, he had taped to his locker at the NovaCare complex the All-Pro comparison between him, Lane Johnson, and Penei Sewell of the Detroit Lions. And it was like, oh, what do you know? Sacks allowed, Penei Sewell 1, Lane Johnson 0. Quarterback hits allowed, Penei Sewell 5, Lane Johnson 1. Quarterback hurries allowed 9, Lane Johnson 22 to Penei Sewell. So, yeah, I kind of like Lane Johnson winning this award.
I'll bet so much money that Penei Sewell wins it.
He's
He's just the darling of the offensive line for some reason. Like, he's a really good player, but
I've heard
or do they give it to Trent Williams, who they know is near retirement, and he's obviously a Hall of Famer too.
It's like a legacy win. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, who knows? Everybody's
like 10 years.
Yeah, everybody's basis for these awards or criteria is different, so I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah,
fair enough. You know what? I not that I look forward to this day, but speaking of retirement, whenever it is Jeff Stoutland says thanks, I'm good. This should be the Jeff Stoutland Award.
It should be called the Stout Award. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be with the Pro Bowlers, All Pros, Hall of Famers. He's cranked out since he's been here. Yeah. I think that would be a great honor to a very, very deserving man.
Now,
do they have an assistant coach of the year? Do they have an assistant coach award? They don't. You could name that the
like
Stout
a
Award
coordinator of the year or something.
No, they just. I mean, now you could get in the Hall of Fame as a coordinator.
Yeah,
there we go.
Are you building? Are you like building a statue for Lane or Jeff Stoutland eventually outside Lincoln Financial Field or the NovaCare complex?
Yeah, absolutely.
610, is that a topic for summer radio? Because I would vote yes.
Yeah, he's on a sled or something, yelling at people as they come into the building.
With the whistle in the mouth and everything.
Whistle?
Yeah.
That'd be cool. 5 linemen are just lined up right in front of him. He's overlooking it. Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good one.
That's a NovaCare complex statue more than a Link statue.
Okay, I agree. I agree with you.
That's for the practice field.
I agree with you.
Although, maybe it should be a statue of that workout he did that went viral with Lane Johnson before they drafted Lane Johnson, where he had his hands around his throat, and you walk in, but Daddy, what's that? No, that's an offensive. It's an offensive line drill. Don't worry about it. That would be a great honor for Jeff Stoutland. Gentlemen, let's go from one unit of big boys to another unit of big boys, and that's the defensive line, Jordan Davis in particular. We talked earlier in the week about Vic Fangio saying the famous phrase, best shape of his life, and how that's usually a very damning thing. But obviously Vic Fangio addressed the media. Since then, Jordan Davis addressed the media, and he talked about what he's doing to keep himself in shape for an entire season, not just the beginning of one and the end of one, but actually through the entire year. It ain't ballet like N'Kobe Dean, but it's something that I think a lot of people actually have in their houses now since the pandemic. We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On Eagles Squad podcast on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Oh boy, FanDuel. Let me tell you about FanDuel right now, what they got going on, because they got so much going on, especially with those NBA Finals. We're talking about FanDuel. You're talking about rolling out all the incredible things they got going on, especially when you talk about the NBA Finals tipping off tonight. No better example than a 9.5-point Oklahoma City favorite right now with FanDuel. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And how about this for new FanDuel customers? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first bet of $5. And if it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets from the amazing people at FanDuel. And how about Pascal Siakam right now? Finals MVP going off at plus 2,000. That'll win yourself some money. So go to FanDuel.com. And like I said, if you're new to FanDuel, this is the perfect time to sign up because you can head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. That's at FanDuel.com. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
I want to know
So,
what Louie's
Jordan-
putting in for the NBA Finals tonight on FanDuel. What you got?
I got
any
a
special
2-leg
plays?
parlay. Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
go Thunder money line, Shea, the over on his points 4. I just think game 1 in OKC, I don't know if this game's going to be close, to be honest.
Goes okay. While we're on it, finals predictions, gentlemen. How many games? Who wins?
Thunder in 5. I think Indiana
that's what I was
steals
gonna
game
say.
3 down 2-0. I feel like the home team down 2-0 always wins game 3 in the finals. So I'll probably take Pacers money line and FanDuel for that one. But I think Thunder in 5. They're so good.
All right.
They are good. Yeah.
I got them in 6. I think they.
I hope it at
steal
least
2.
gets to 6. The finals
win it-
haven't been. When was the last time there was a good NBA finals? I mean, 2016? That's the last time I enjoyed one thoroughly, to be
For
honest.
me, 2001. 2001
That's
was the
a long
last
ago.
one. Actually,
watched-
just game 1. Just game
Yeah.
1 of that, actually.
Fair.
I watched the first 2 periods of that hockey game last night. It was very entertaining, but I couldn't stay up, and thank goodness because it went to overtime.
Yeah, Draisaitl
well.
scored. I was wondering,
Yeah.
thank God he scored that, because I was on the fringe of like, do I go to bed or do I wait through a whole nother intermission? Hockey overtime in the playoffs
Right.
is tough.
It was near
It's
the end
tough.
of the first overtime.
It was
wasn't
right
Like,
at the end,
yeah,
so thank
yeah,
God. It was a great game.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what they should do in hockey? They should just say, no breaks. We just play, no clock, unplug
Yeah.
it, just play until you drop.
Or at least like the full intermission and a full another period is excessive to me. Like
Yeah.
cut one at least in half. I don't know. Something's got to be done because these
Yeah.
games are going late.
They are going.
Or either that or they should just fight. No. All right. Anyway, that's old-time Flyer hockey in my mind right there, gentlemen. All right. So usually when this phrase gets brought up, it's not, I mean, usually it's never good. I'm in the best shape of my life. It sounds so positive, but it's so damning. So Vic Fangio said it about Jordan Davis. Now, I'll say this. Jordan Davis actually made me feel better after I heard him talk. When I heard it from Fangio, I wasn't as impressed. But we've talked about this on the show over the 2 months we've been doing it. And Jordan Davis came out, or Jordan Davis, when we've talked about him, talked about how in the beginning of the year, he came out strong. Middle of the year, almost invisible. End of the year, came on strong again. Good playoff run. As it would turn out, fellas, we saw him at the bike race, the autism awareness bike race a year ago, looking svelte. And we went, oh, look, this guy looks like he's in shape. Then apparently packed on a couple of pounds, got out of football shape, and then got back on a bike of all things, as he has become a very loyal Peloton rider, gentlemen.
Little
And
Mo
that's what
cardio.
Yeah, and that's what helped him get back in shape for the second half of the season. Can we stay on the bike there, Jordan Davis? Harry, are you a Peloton? Are you, I don't know, Pelotonian? I don't even know what they call it.
No,
But
I'm
this is
not
big thing for
I'm
Jordan
not a
Davis.
Pelotonian, but I did race bikes back in the day, after my cross country days were over. But so I can understand it is kind of addictive.
Okay.
And the quote was he fell in love with the Peloton, but the real reason that he fell in love with the Peloton is because he didn't like his fat face look and he wanted to look more sexy. This guy's a single guy as far as I know, and he's out there trying to put himself in a better, there's a lot of other big guys that he hangs out with. All right? He wants to look more svelte and ripped for a defensive lineman and get the attention of the ladies. So I fully endorse this new Jordan Davis on the Peloton, and good for him, man.
Whatever the motivation is, just
Yeah.
keep it going. He's got to do it. If it's about the ladies, if it's about the vanity, just do it. I mean, just fine. Like, get this guy into November and December in shape, because it has been the same story every year. I was at the Autism Challenge 2 years ago, ran by him, and I genuinely couldn't believe how different he looked. And then he always starts the season really well. Like his rookie year, he was good the first half of 2022. Same thing in 2023. I thought he was solid last year in 2024, the first half of the year, but he just can't maintain. And it's a challenge. It requires a lot, like you said, a lot of discipline and consistency. I feel like anybody can practice their way into shape for training camp and take a couple of months and really lock in. But when it's the regular season and it's that long, 4 to 5 month, 6 month grind, like that's when you really need to lock in, and he hasn't been able to. So if he wants to, and he's still been a solid player, but if he wants to ascend to, we've compared him on the show to Dexter Lawrence and Vita Vea from a ceiling perspective. If he wants to get to that level, I mean, he's got to stay on the Peloton all year, because he's played out of shape every season he's been here.
And it's a good thing you have those things at home. Like this is something he can just, you see he walks past the Peloton every morning. Right there it is.
Right.
Man, I haven't,
Put it right
I haven't
next
been
to
on
the
that
bed.
thing
Don't-
in 3 days.
yeah.
I got to get
Don't
on
even
there.
touch the floor. Get right on that bike.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now that's also a good strategy, Harry. So if I want to look skinnier, I'll just stand next to Jordan Davis, and then I'll be like, I look jacked next to this guy.
Exactly right.
But here's what I also like about it, because he went on in the media session that I saw. He also acknowledged again that his team needed him when he was kind of done with the joking around, whatever. He's like, yeah, bottom line is the team needed me. So I needed to get on that bike. I like the bike. He mentioned his favorite instructor. I don't know who they are. But he said, this is how I'm going to help my team. And it brought me back to what made me so optimistic about Jordan Davis last year. And when they showed up, I think it was for minicamp, and he addressed the media, he said, almost like the Rick Pitino quote, Larry Bird's not walking through that door, He said, Fletcher Cox isn't coming here to save me. He's not coming here to save Jalen Carter. He's not coming here to save anybody. This is a matter of me being a leader now, me being, filling some pretty huge shoes. So that motivated him to get back out there and get in shape. If the Eagles are going to go into this season and not have Milton Williams and maybe Ty Robinson isn't anybody worth bragging about, and he doesn't step up, and Moro Ojomo can't get much better than he was last year, then who's the other guy? Who's the Milton Williams? Who's going to be the guy, or is Jordan Davis going to make it easy for that next person to step up by being able to actually have a snap increase by being out there on passing downs instead of being taken off the field on 3rd and long situations? Is he going to be out there trying to disrupt things? Because if he is in shape and he's able to do that throughout the season, and he's riding the Peloton all the live long day to make sure he can stay out there, well, then this Eagles defensive line is all of a sudden going to be in a lot better hands than I thought they were, Louie, before the season started.
That's the thing is Jordan Davis, for the first 3 years of his career, he's always had at least 3 to 4 proven players at his position that can help carry the load. So the floor of Jordan Davis being a really good 2-down run stopper, it's been enough because they've had Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter. They had Milton Williams and Moro Ojomo. In 2022, they brought in Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh. So there's always been other options to do what Jordan Davis can't at the end of the year, consistently get to the quarterback. I love that quote about, Fletcher Cox isn't coming through that door, because this year, especially more than ever, even compared to last year, like now Milton Williams is gone, and I have high hopes for Moro Ojomo and, Ty Robinson, but those guys are more projections. We had a very small sample size of Ojomo being efficient last year, getting to the quarterback, and Robinson's a rookie. So, Jordan Davis, there's a lot of pressure on him this year, and he's trying to earn a contract extension.
Yeah.
They picked up that 5th-year option, but if he wants to be paid like the elite of the elite, he's got to show that he can do more than what he's done.
Yeah, totally. And let's not forget, I know Louie's got the hat on, the Bulldogs. This guy is he's got a lot of other guys on this team that he's been with for a while now in college. He's starting to see everybody lauding, some of the other guys, Nolan Smith, everybody else is like getting all these accolades, and there's him sitting there saying, all right, they gave me my 5th-year option. I got to start playing. Like, this is now the time where I want to be mentioned in the same breath as some of my other teammates that I played in college with and now here with the Eagles. I think that motivates guys. At least I hope it does, and I think that might be what we're seeing here.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Now, we were on the air the last time we were doing a show, I should say, that when Vic Fangio was addressing the media on Tuesday at noon. So a couple other things we didn't get to on that show, other than Jordan Davis's shape. He talked about Jalen Carter. Now, there was an assessment on WIP from Jeremiah Trotter, senior, not junior, on Jalen Carter, just kind of not even knowing how to play the defensive tackle position yet, just going out there with raw talent. It was posed to Vic Fangio, and he's like, yeah, I agree with that assessment. And it's like, hold on a second.
That's
this guy doesn't know how to
scary.
play the that is if you're a guard, okay,
That's
around the
scary.
league, you should just retire now.
Yeah.
He's just going on raw talent. And Jalen Carter also addressed the media around the same time Jordan Davis did yesterday. And he talked about how he's like, yeah, I'm just learning. I'm just letting it all soak in. And now my word's not his. I'm going to unleash fury now that I understand what's going on and I get a better bearing on what the NFL is. And I played pretty damn good last year. I'm gonna keep on pouring it on. So the interesting thing for me, Harry, and all that is, number one, as you mentioned, scary that he doesn't know how to play the position yet, and he was dominant. And then if you get Jalen Carter taking a step forward from that, oh my God, and then you get Jordan Davis taking a step forward, for the Ty Robinsons of the world, for the Moro Ojomos of the world, for the people trying to take over for Milton Williams, your workload just got a hell of a lot easier. Your learning curve got greater because of the guys that are going to be hopefully dominant on the interior of that defensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Carter's amazing. I mean, he's one of those guys, and I did the postcast last season with Jason, and I'd say this basically every week, that he's a guy, when the defensive unit is on the field, I'm sort of like you remember the old spot shadow thing they used to use back in the day? Well, that's the way I sort of watch the defense, with him being the guy in the spot shadow, because he just takes over the defensive line. And with the push that he gets with 2, sometimes 3 guys on him, he pushes the pile. He's always in the backfield. He's just amazing to watch. And to hear that comment, from Jeremiah Trotter is great. He knows defense way more than I do, but to hear it like echoed by the defensive coordinator is some scary stuff, man. Because when he figures it out, and maybe it's this year, look out. I can't wait to watch it. And if you're a guy playing alongside him, like Robinson from Nebraska, what better guy to learn from than that guy? So it's great. And if Jordan Davis, stays in shape and takes his level to his game to the next level, we could be forgetting all about Fletcher Cox here for a little while.
Yeah, and I think the quote was, I don't think he's as raw as the quote was alluding to, but it is true. Like, Jalen Carter has another all-time level to get to. I mean, Aaron Donald himself said, like, Jalen Carter could be that next guy that becomes an all-time great at this position. And deep offenses are already treating him as such. Like, last year, he's getting double, triple teamed almost every single play. And that's why, like, Carter would have some massive takeover games. And then there were some games it's like, because the offense was putting so much attention on him, I don't want to say he would disappear, but again, he's taking a lot of the attention away. Once he learns how to, even in those situations, still dominate, this is a guy that I think is going to be number one in the league at his position, that in a couple of years is going to demand, $35+ million a year. Like, that contract is coming. He has that kind of upside. I think, the more last year went on, the more you saw that potential coming out.
Yeah. And he plays a lot of snaps.
Yeah.
94%. What was he at last year?
It's in the low 90s in the percentage. Yeah.
Which is huge, though, because he hit that rookie wall in 2023. In the second half of the year, you could tell he wasn't as impactful as the first half. And last year, he was able to overcome that. So Carter was able to do it. Now Jordan Davis is going to have to do it.
Yep.
Louie, I know you did a lot on this with Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Cooper DeJean. Now, we, again, hinted at it on Tuesday when we were following what was trickling in from the press conference. But it seems like all hands on deck. The goal here is just to get Cooper DeJean on the field as much as possible. So if that's in the slot, so be it. If that's at the outside spot, so be it. If that's at safety, Louie, so be it. And the more reps for Cooper DeJean, as far as I'm concerned, the better.
Yeah, and I think, again, he's going to play 90+% of the time at nickel, which is when the Eagles are in nickel, which is the majority of the time, he'll be their inside slot corner. But I love hearing the idea of when they're not in nickel, that DeJean, they're just thinking of different ways to put him on the football field, because he does have so much versatility where if you want him playing on the boundary opposite Quinyon Mitchell, he can do that. But I think his skill set translates better to safety. If he's not the nickel corner, I'd rather have him be that hybrid matchup type of defensive back that Malcolm Jenkins was, that Kyle Hamilton is in Baltimore, Brian Branch is in Detroit. I would love to see him use him that way more in those base packages than potentially playing as the outside corner. I just think his upside is more suited towards a safety inside corner role. I think he can still be a very good outside corner. I just like hearing that Fangio's trying different things to get him on the football field, because, again, he does have such a complete, versatile skill set.
Yeah, I hope he's on the field so much this season at so many different positions. They got to rename a position for him and just call him the Predator. Okay, just put him anywhere. Put him at outside linebacker, for God's sake.
Him and Jihad Campbell. It could be Alien and Predator. That's the nickname combo for 2 Swiss Army knives on defense. Yeah, I like it. That's
the old Connor Barwin role in the famed Billy Davis defense. Who's the Predator?
Well, in Sidney Brown, we just got a nickname for him, right? Somebody said he plays a Crash Bandicoot. So we're getting we're getting nicknames for all these guys on defense. And that one's perfect if you played old PlayStation games.
To something that Vic Fangio shouted out there. He said, he's like, does anyone know how many base snaps we played in all of last year?
Yeah.
And somebody said 70%, and he was like, "What?" It's like he basically was like, "You can leave." That was his that was more or less his reaction to it. He's like 160 in all of last year. In all of our snaps, we played a total of 160 snaps in base defense. So Cooper DeJean, being a safety or being an outside corner, is still going to be very few and far between. But the bottom line is they want him to get up from, I think it was 67% of the snaps he played last year to much closer to what Quinton Mitchell put out there, which was about like 95 or 97% of the snaps that were played last year defensively. So that's the main point.
That's the key. It's like they're not going to play a lot of base defense, but it's good to hear because last year when they only had two corners out there, it was Quinton Mitchell and Darius Slay. So that's the one good part of this is Cooper is going to be on the field like 100% of the time, which is why, to go off to special teams, like I think they need to find a new punt returner because DeJean's got to have so much on his plate that I don't want him also returning kicks this year. He's got a big role on defense.
They just signed a guy the other day that has returned kicks in college at Sam Houston State for KC Keeler, who's now at the helm of the Temple Owls. I don't know. Maybe Howie Roseman consulted KC and said, you got to go get this undrafted guy out of Sam Houston. He's got 4.35 speed. He can return kicks for you.
There you go.
There you go.
Smart.
Boom.
Be smart. Always good
now
to
pronounce his
owl.
name. Pronounce his name.
I was going to try, but I don't even think I want
I need time. Punt returner guy.
Is it Ife Adeyi? I don't know. Adeyi?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I got
that's who he is. Yeah.
Last thing from Vic Fangio's presser the other day. This is, you talk about not having as much depth as you're used to on the defensive line. Louie, I know you brought this up on Tuesday. It actually got my wheels turning because I remember last year thinking the same thing. Like, I can't remember a time where the Eagles' defensive line was so light when it came to depth. Now, Thomas Booker actually played well. Thomas Booker the fourth when he got an opportunity. Moro Ajomo, of course, probably the most sung of the unsung heroes, right? And then Jordan Davis's up and down season and Jalen Carter taking that big step forward. What I really liked was when they were asked about when Vic Fangio was asked about the defensive line, he said, well, if people had questions last year, you should have questions this year. Last year, the questions got answered. People that needed to step up, stepped up. He goes, now you're talking about an edge rusher position where we have Uche in here. This is now Vic Fangio. We have Uche in here. We have Azeez Ojulari in here. We have guys like Jalix Hunt that we expect to take a step forward. Nolan Smith to pick up from where he left off last year. And that was a really solid season from him, especially after the bye week. He just talked about how these guys, Jahad Campbell when he's healthy, he just talked about all these guys similar to last year. Yeah, unknown in terms of what they could do at the NFL level and unknown whether or not they could take that big step forward. And even Milton Williams was a question as to whether or not he was ready for more of the workload. So if you were worried last year, Harry, then this year should feel a lot easier considering you've been there before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, there's a comfort level now because of what we saw develop after the bye week last year with the defense and with the defensive coordinator. We had some doubts about. We talked about it in the last episode on Tuesday. Now there's a comfort level where you're almost like saying, oh well, he'll figure it out. He knows what's best. It's amazing how you just sort of are relaxed. You sort of come into a season like this, relaxed. Last year at this time, there was a whole lot of all this unknown, with new coordinators, new players, and you 3-4 weeks in, you were wondering, is this Fangio just trying to get his one final check? You know what I mean? Taking it easy, getting back home, and all the kind, and all that stuff got answered over the next couple of weeks after the bye week, and now we're sitting here, very comfortable. So it's kind of we're not used to being comfortable as Philadelphia sports observers. I know it's new.
Yeah, I think we're not comfortable also having so many players that are this young on defense. Like, this is the reality of when you have a young defense that has a lot of potential. There are also going to just be more questions that follow this because they're not bringing in the veteran proven players that they used to because they want to be cheaper on defense right now. They want to build a more sustainable long-term core. And with that reality, there's just going to be, it's a riskier process because you don't know what you have in young players. But I like this strategy because this is more sustainable long term, and you got to give those guys a chance to play on the field. It used to be so frustrating back in like the 2016 to 2020 era when a young guy would be coming along and then boom, Jason Peters goes in front of Jordan Mailata, or Alshon Jeffrey is now playing over this young receiver. I like the strategy better, especially when you have a mastermind on defense like Fangio that can, get the most out of young players right away.
Yeah, I'll use a baseball term. They quickly replenish the farm system. Yeah, that's what it feels like when watching this defensive line and these edge rushers. All right, gentlemen, when we come back, we got to continue our 2024 year that was rewind. We're going to talk about the Eagles taking on the Giants in their first matchup of the season, and then also shift gears to taking on the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. 2 road games after Nick Sirianni was yelling at the fans following the win over the Browns. That's when we return. This is Locked On Quick Break, Locked On Eagles Squad podcast. The year that was 2024, ending in a Super Bowl championship, the Eagles' second Super Bowl championship and Super Bowl parade for the city of Philadelphia. Eagles were coming off a 20-16 win over the Cleveland Browns, and they were headed to New York, or rather North Jersey, to take on the New York Giants. That one was the first of 2 blowouts on the G-Men. This one 28-3, an absolutely dominating performance with Saquon Barkley's 176 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts wasn't too shabby in that one, only throwing the football 14 times. And I think the thing that is stuck in all our minds is Saquon Barkley before the beginning of the fourth quarter. Nick Sirianni sitting next to him on the bench at the Meadowlands saying, you want to keep going for a new record or you want to let the young guys in? And he said, Saquon Barkley, of course, famously said, let the young guys eat. Louie, when you look back on this 28-3 Eagles victory, their second win in a row, what jumps out to you from that win?
Yeah. I think these 2 games we're going to talk about today, they're 2 of the most important games of the season, especially this Giants one, because it was the start of their new identity. That Cleveland game, again, they were still trying to figure out who they were. They barely beat a bad Browns team. They were still throwing the football more than running. This was the game, and of course it's the Saquon revenge game, so it's kind of fitting that this was the start of this. This was when they fully said, okay, we're going all in on Saquon being the face of this offense. We're going to run it through him. But you also got Jalen Hurts taking care of the football. You got the deep shots, like explosiveness and clean passing football. That 4th down touchdown to A.J. Brown was beautiful with a blitzer in Hurts' face. So that's why this game to me was so important, because it was finally like the new identity. It was Saquon carrying the load, and it was just cool to see another star Eagle get revenge on his team in a historic way. It was A.J. Brown in 2022 against Tennessee, and then Saquon against New York. Though those are always fun to see, the revenge where it goes well for the Eagle.
Yeah, the revenge was huge. I mean, him making his return to the Meadowlands, and obviously they wanted to feature him. And, he didn't have just one. He had 3 big runs in that game. 55-yard run. He ripped off a 38-yard run and then a 41-yard run.
Ridiculous.
Of 3 of his 17 carries, the total 176 and a touchdown. But the first 3 possessions, we still saw this offense sort of shoot themselves in the foot to try to get started. This was still part of that not scoring in the first quarter stuff where Jalen would take a sack and it would, on 3rd down, 3rd and 10, take a sack. And the next possession, they had a false start, I believe, on Landon Dickerson on 3rd down. And then Jalen took another sack, punt. Then they I think might have direct snapped it to Saquon, lost a couple yards. Jalen took a sack. That's 3 possessions ending in sacks and punts, and you're like, man, what is going on here? And then all of a sudden, they go to the Gainwell series. I love how when these offensive coordinators are like, all right, we got to get this guy in the flow, and then all of a sudden, it's 3 straight plays to a backup, and you're like, what is happening here? Calcaterra gets a big catch because there was no Goddard in this game. I think this might have been was this the start of the Goddard injury? Run.
He got hurt in the Cleveland game in the second quarter.
Okay.
So, it was the game before.
Yeah, so they got the ball to Calcaterra and then the 41-yarder to AJ, and it kind of opened up the game. They get the touchdown, and then you just saw, man, how bad the Giants are. Like, the Eagles' defense held them to 2.2 yards per play. I mean, that gets coaches fired in the NFL. I was amazed at how bad they were. I mean, I know they didn't have a whole lot, and then the quarterback stinks. I get all that, but man, 2.2 yards per play as a professional football team is I can't even describe that as anemic. It's worse than that. So it really is. So this was part of that sort of that re-identity, and you guys mentioned it. I mean, Hurts only 14 passing attempts. But he was very efficient. And, the next week we're going to talk about the Cincinnati game. He was also starting to become very efficient with the football and no turnovers. And that's where you started to see this what became the Eagles was starting this week and the next game against Cincinnati.
It's funny, Harry, you mentioned the sacks on Jalen Hurts. There were 4 in total on him in that game. And I remember, especially in the early goings of it, I remember thinking, like, get rid of the football. And it became a big part of his game plan, for lack of a better term, or like his strategy, like, don't turn the football. If I just don't turn the football, if I don't give their offense another opportunity to score the football, then I could just give it to Saquon Barkley. It's like it's like why they shoot so many threes in basketball now in the NBA. It's because you think you're going to maximize your potential there by knocking down those shots. You're going to shoot 30-40% of it and make it. If you give the football to the other team, they always talk about how the turnover differential decides games more often than not. If I just don't give them opportunities, in Jalen Hurts' mind, if I don't give them opportunities, they're not going to score. And we're going to have an opportunity, if I just give the ball to Saquon Barkley, to get it close enough to the end zone where we could push our way in there. And that was kind of the start of, I remember yelling at the TV for Jalen to get rid of it, but his thought process was, no, I'm not going to put my arm back like I did in Tampa, and a guy like Levante David's going to knock it back if I got to throw in a phone booth. I'm just going to eat the sack. The sack is fine. The turnover is terrible.
Right. Or now, I'm going to throw up my back foot down the middle of the field.
Exactly. Like the first game of the season against the Packers. The average for him was 8 yards, a little over 8 yards per attempt in that game for Jalen Hurts through the air, and the only 14 carries. Only 17 carries for Saquon Barkley in that game. He averaged over 10 yards per carry. That. You talk about as terrible as the Giants was as godlike as Saquon Barkley was in that game.
They had 270 yards rushing as a team in that game. That's like
Kenny
Gainwell
Gainwell over 4 yards per carry.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I think the Cincinnati game, which we're about to talk about, was so important, though, because I think, again, this was Jalen finding his new identity. The offense was finding their new identity against the Giants. They're going to be a run-first offense. But it did feel like too extreme in that game. Like, okay, they're going to have to get more, though, from their quarterback in the passing game long-term if they want to win a championship. And so, although I liked this new style of offense, I did say to myself, like, okay, this is good that Hurts isn't making the forced errors that he was the first 5 games of the season, but they're going to need more out of him. I remember asking that question after the Giants game, like, is this a championship? Like, this kind of style of football can get you to the playoffs, but can you win a championship this way? Right. And that's why I think that Bengals game was so important, because I think we saw Hurts be clean, but also really carry the team with explosive plays.
Absolutely. All right, when we come back, we're going to take a look at the game that we've mentioned a couple of times here. After they took care of business against the Giants in a blowout, they went ahead and took advantage against the Cincinnati Bengals in Week 8 with a 37-17 win. Quick hit after this. We'll be back, locked on Eagle Squad podcast. Do the Eagles, gentlemen, dare to make it three wins in a row? I'm going to start at the end with this one because it's a stat that people tend to scoff at, and that's win differential, or point differential, excuse me. When the Eagles went to the Super Bowl against Kansas City Chiefs the first time and lost, during that season, they had 6 games where they won games by 10 or more points. The year they fizzled out 2 years ago now at the end of the season, up until the end of the season, they had only won games by 10 or more points twice. Now, point differential doesn't mean everything, but it certainly means that you're controlling games, that you're not just eking out victories like this team did almost every single win that they had in 2023. So for me, looking at this game, back-to-back blowouts for the Eagles, they had already matched in Week 8 the amount of 10-point or more wins that they had in the previous season. This, for me, was a very significant win for the Eagles because it showed they could control games from start to finish and not just against a hapless team like the New York Giants. Louie, when you let me start with Harry for this one. Harry, when you start and look back at the Cincinnati Bengals game, their 3rd win in a row, 37-17, what jumps out to you?
Well, it's obviously the 3rd win in a row, but the 2nd straight week where the quarterback was really efficient. and he upped it to 16 of 20 for 236, no turnovers, and he didn't take a sack. You put those 2 weeks together with the Giants and the Bengals. Think about this: 26 of 34 for 350 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, and 5 on the ground. 5 touchdowns on the ground. I know it's 1 yard stuff and all the, the tush push and all that, but I mean that's pretty impressive. And this was also a game where Saquon got over 100, but it wasn't where he was ripping off 50, 60 yarders. His longest carry was, I believe, 19 yards. You just saw efficiency here. Smith and Brown both around the same amount of yards, receptions, touchdown. He spread the ball around. Calcaterra had 3 catches again with no Goddard. And I was just really, starting to feel like Louie was saying, I need to see more out of, the quarterback. Well, this was the week where you started to see a little bit more, and you could feel a little bit better about him. And again, Nolan Smith on the defensive side, third straight game with a sack.
Yeah, this was the game that I was finally all in on this team, because after the bye week, I wanted Nick Sirianni gone. I wanted blood. I mean, I wasn't happy with Jalen Hurts as the quarterback. The Giants game, I'm like, okay, this is the new strategy. I think this is the right approach for the short term. But again, if we're talking Super Bowl, if that's the ceiling we're talking about, we do need to see Jalen do more when he's throwing the football. And in this game, it's not like he threw 30 to 40 times. He only had 20 attempts, as Harry was talking about. But you saw him be efficient with the football and aggressive. He had that deep touchdown to Devontae Smith. He was aggressive on the ground as well, 3 rushing touchdowns. Joe Burrow, if you remember in this game, there's only 17 points by Cincinnati, but in the first half, Burrow was having a lot of success against that defense, and Jalen Hurts was answering it blow for blow. And that was a question I needed answered, because I didn't think at this time of the season, if it's all going to be Saquon and they can't trust Jalen at all to carry them, even if he's not doing it every game, but there's moments they're going to need it, and we found that out in the NFC title and the Super Bowl. Can he do it? And this game kind of answered that for me. So I remember this game being a huge confidence booster for me based on how well Jalen played.
2 things. One, you mentioned his hot start for Joe Burrow, excuse me, in the first half. Don't forget, first drive, 17 plays, 70 yards, 10:04 for the Cincinnati Bengals to start off that game. Burrow, 11 for 12, 60 yards, and a touchdown in that first drive. First quarter, it was 7-0 in favor of the Bengals by the time it closed out. Eagles bounced back in the second quarter. And I mentioned earlier, one of the big reasons I was excited to talk about this game was because it was back-to-back 10 points or more the Eagles won by. Another reason I'm excited to talk about this one, because, gentlemen, this is the first game I have in my notes in this legal pad. I don't know what happened to the previous 7 games, but I believe my kids ripped this apart and used it to doodle. So I think I have every game after this in the same legal pad.
With those first games, though, I think those you were able to crumple up and throw out.
Yeah,
so that's
throw
fine.
it.
That's not a big loss.
Hey, look,
I feel like that was a calculated move. Yeah,
I'm not blaming my kids. Okay,
right.
I gotta do a better job of putting my legal pads in a better position to not be used and abused by my children. So I'm happy that I got all the games from this point on, including the Super Bowl, in this one legal pad. It's like using a full roll of chapstick, a full stick of chapstick. It's very soothing to be able to use, have them all right here.
My handwriting's not good enough to do that. I don't know. I mean, the taking notes on a pad, those days are behind me, at least.
Were you a Catholic school kid, Louie?
No, public school.
Nun's big on the penmanship.
Maybe that's why I don't have it.
Oh, there you go.
Harry's got it too.
Yeah.
Harry, there you go.
Too.
Sister Mary Margaret, very happy of that.
I didn't go to Catholic school, but it's almost like I was channeling it,
That's right.
But this was also a game where, they kept Jamar Chase in check in this game. This was a big thing that I was looking to see, with some of these young guys in the defensive backfield against a stud like that. He got targeted 11 times, and really, I know he scored a touchdown, but really didn't do the damage that guy can do. So that was impressive.
And DeJean had that huge play on 4th down where they threw Chase like a swing pass behind the line of scrimmage. DeJean took him out.
Oh, yeah.
This was another game you're like, okay, this move to put Cooper in the slot is really changing the defense. So this was like 3 games in a row that Vic's defense was on fire, and like Harry said, Nolan Smith was getting going. This was, again, a huge confidence-boosting game because you got the huge game from Hurts, and the defense was heating up, and they didn't look back after this. They won 7 straight after this.
Yep, good cool stuff.
Next up, let's see. Tuesday, we're going to continue to rewind the season and the season that was there. After this game, they went and faced, this is a scorcher, the Jacksonville Jaguars in a very frustrating win. Maybe we'll go along the lines of moral loss. And then our first Cowboy matchup, we get to revisit. Did I say matchup? Blowout!
We get to talk some Cooper Rush next week. That's exciting. Let's go.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I'm not going to be sleeping much between now and Tuesday, gentlemen.
Little Trey Lance, I think he played a couple snaps in that game. So
he did.
That's going to be a barn burner. Let's go.
He made a cameo is what he did.
Right.
Hey, guys, always a pleasure. Make sure the people – you know what? Speaking of the people watching, listening, all that stuff, I know we had Ted E. I saw one thing from you there, Ted E. Vic came here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and he's all out of bubble gum. That's a great
Wasn't
quote.
that Roddy Piper who said that?
Roddy Piper. I believe was he fighting aliens or zombies? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. But Bob Brown talking about Lane Johnson. Odds are against Lane. Right tackle with left tackles ahead of him. Left tackle is the premier position. That's true.
But doesn't
Stephanie,
Sewell play right? Sewell plays right tackle, doesn't he? Don't they have Decker on the left side?
Taylor Decker is one of the tackles. Yeah, I'm not sure actually.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That'll be the cliffhanger for next week.
Yeah,
that'll be the cliffhanger for next week's show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing to Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. You got Harry Mays and Jason Martinez for your Eagles postcasts during the season. Louie DiBiase taking you through 365 days right here on Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. So make sure you guys are liking and subscribing. My name is Mark Farzetta. That right there, Harry Mays. That over there, that's Louie DiBiase. Jason Martinez will be back with us for next week. He continues to take care of the situation that he's in right now. We look forward to breaking down the birds even further next week, Tuesday and Thursday at noon. Once again, like and subscribe to Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. See you guys next week.